Recent survey finds that only 42% of Americans have confidence in higher education, and perhaps that number should be considerably less. A piece in USA Today by Natalie Sandoval, who is a 2024 Columbia University grad, degree in English. They still offer that as a major? Huh, imagine. She writes about the cheating culture on campus now in the era of AI. Is it even scandalous? Let's talk to her right now. Natalie Sandoval is USA Today Opinion Fellow through the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, and as I said, a 2024 grad of Columbia. Natalie, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good that you've only a couple of years removed from the culture on campus, particularly in the Ivy League. So, and you've added some statistics to the case here. Well, I'll let you delineate, but tell us about what the AI cheating culture on campus looks and feels like.
Right. So I caught the tail end of it. I graduated in 2024. Professors were just starting to implement AI guidelines, and it was becoming a problem on campus. But what recently happened at Brown University, it's the largest known AI-assisted cheating scandal in the Ivy League. Essentially what happened was an economics professor, Roberto Serrano, offered a take-home midterm exam, and it was his first time doing it. Historically, the score had been somewhere between 65 to 80%, and his students came back with an average score of 96%. So, of course, he suspected cheating. He changed the final to be in person, and the average score dropped to around 49%.
Well, that's a big drop. Slash that in half. So we find that they're good at cheating, but not very good at mastering the actual course material.
Well, apparently they're not even good at cheating because they all got caught.
Well, true. At least they try. At least they had it stolen fair and square before he did the redo. Stolen fair and square is a term we like in Chicago to apply to elections. But I mean, so yes. So it speaks to a couple things. It seems to me, both the culture of cheating in the AI era on campus, but also the cognitive atrophy that is occurring because you can use AI instead of having to think for yourself.
Definitely. Yeah. And something that I point to in the article is that AI makes it easier to cheat, but there are all sorts of little cheating scandals going on in the Ivy League. Like, for example, Stanford, Ivy League adjacent. Almost 40% of students have disability accommodation.
Right. Yes.
I mean, it's insane. But
and develop that the disability accommodation. What's the ruse there?
Right. So having a disability accommodation means you get extra time on tests. It means you might get better dining options, and it means that you get your pick of campus housing. You get to exercise more authority there. So students will say, "Hey, I'm gluten-free. I need an accommodation for that."
Mm-hmm. And so, but on the cheating piece itself, though, one of the arguments you make is that there's really no stigma to it, at least not much of one within the student body.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it starts before college when students at prep schools and other schools are figuring out how to get into these colleges because the process is totally gamified. And to the extent that you can embellish your credentials or, craft an image of yourself as something that you're not, that's pretty much encouraged.
Well, I mean, there's something else, too, just in terms of this larger conversation about campus culture. In the 1990s, a 1550 SAT got a white or Asian kid a 76% chance of getting into your alma mater, Columbia. Today, that same score for a white or Asian kid affords you a 16% chance. So with the whole the Trump administration's diatribes against DEI and the executive orders and civil rights enforcement and so forth, that's all well and good. but it seems like, again, they're doing surreptitiously what they were doing overtly previously. And part of this, by the way, part of this story is not just the discrimination, as per the Supreme Court's ruling in the Harvard admissions case, but it's also the inflation of SAT scores, because the SAT has been made a lot easier and easier to study for, and easier to game out for a higher score.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. And I also, the fact that this is an open secret. I mean, when I was in high school, people would discuss this. They would discuss their relative advantages based on, their demographic group. So students know going into the process that the schools are not evaluating them purely based on academic merit.
Well, right, and again, in lieu of using demographic data, you do the personal statement, and
Right.
If you do a personal statement where you reference your intersectionality, then that is the way to sort of work around any sort of anti-DEI barriers. But I mean, so what is your sense though of like you said, it's the cheating culture? Outsourcing your thinking and working to AI, something that's starting in high school and then it just migrates over to college. But you mentioned the Brown University situation. But I mean, the professor's not ostracized, or is the blowback to the second exam, which saw the median score get cut in half? Is that on the professor, or is that on the students, or is it on nobody?
In terms of culpability?
Yeah.
I would have to say, I think the professor did the right thing here. I mean,
well, yeah.
insofar as you can AI proof an exam, you just have to make people take it in person. You have to make people write things down. Granted, I was an English major, so that's far easier to do than other majors, I assume. But yeah, I put the blame entirely on the students. They thought that they could all cheat and get away with it, and clearly they couldn't.
Give us perspective on what Columbia University was like when you were there. I mean, you're only 2 years removed, and that place has been a circus for many years now. So, what is the campus culture like in these quote unquote elite schools?
Right. I mean, I met a lot of people who genuinely cared about the work they were doing, but I also met a lot of people who saw it as essentially a list of boxes to check off to get the degree, right? I'm going to take these required classes and I'm going to turn in whatever papers I have to. And academic integrity is not really a word that comes up very often.
I mean, among students, among your peers, sure. But what about with respect to professors and administrators? Is there any discussion of sort of the of intellectual integrity?
I think they were all very concerned. I saw a recent survey saying that about 3/4 of Brown professors are worried about AI cheating. But yeah, my sense was the professors were very worried. We had some new AI policies rolled out in my final semester of, okay, you can use it, but you have to disclose it, or no, you can't use it at all. So they were trying to figure it out.
And it sounds like per your anecdotes in the piece you wrote in USA Today, the figuring is ongoing, isn't it?
It is. And my sense is that professors, a lot of them feel that AI use is inevitable and that they're not really going to be able to catch it all. And some of them are kind of throwing their hands up and saying, we have no idea what to do about this. This is breaking the system.
And what do you think the balance of power is on campus, too? I mean, because one of the contentions that's been made over the last several years is that the professors are afraid of their students. I mean, you saw this with respect to some of the just barbaric behavior on campus that was of the anti-Semitic variety after the 10/7 massacre, including and most notably at Columbia, actually. But even those who didn't condone the conduct on campus, I'm talking about the professors, administrators, afraid to speak out because they don't want to be targeted by the mob. Do you have a sense that that bleeds over into issues like AI cheating as well?
I'm not certain. I don't really have insight into that because I didn't speak with any professors about their fears. And, if that's something that happened, I think they would try to generally keep it pretty quiet.
Right.
But I have seen news stories like that, professors essentially being put through struggle sessions by their students.
Right. Was it your sense that I mean, did you see evidence of that while you were at Columbia?
Frankly, generally, I found everyone to be pretty respectful in class.
Okay.
Obviously, you encounter extremely woke talking points. That's kind of a given. But I imagine a lot of the professors were on board for that sort of discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we talk sort of in generalities about the state of higher education, and I think about my own time. Just trying to get a handle on the sense of it. The counter argument that's made is, yes, you see these spectacles and people make spectacles of themselves, but it's not necessarily representative of even a significant percentage of what's going on in campus life or what the viewpoints and the behavior of undergrads at some of these elite universities is, or the viewpoints and behavior of some of the professors at these elite universities. So you're trying to get, a sense of what the proportion of what the scope of the problem is, the proportion of the illiberal element on campus. And I just, I think your perspective is interesting because you have been there so recently. So you have at least, one example of a firsthand experience with trying to assess how big that problem is at Columbia from the perspective of a person I'm gathering from you who does believe in peaceful pluralism and the free marketplace of ideas that campuses are supposed to be. Right.
I do think that the number of just a liberal kind of people who are foaming at the mouth is a minority. But on the other hand, students kind of have these priors baked into them that they are unwilling to give up and that they are very resistant when challenged on.
Natalie Sandoval is USA Today Opinion Fellow through the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, 24 grad of Columbia University. Natalie, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And she joined us on the alphawealthgroup.com answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I'm Gary Carr, retired homicide detective and the owner of Illinois Concealed Carry Training in Midlothian. For 10 years, we've helped more than 20,000 students become safe, responsible, and confident firearm owners. If you're looking to get your Illinois Concealed Carry license or need to renew, now's the perfect